Hello and good night. Today, as part of my second period evaluation, I going to tell a story of my invention. So let's start. The name of today's story is Among the Forest. Steven was in his room, preparing some things for the camping trip that he would do with his friends. He was not very excited about the trip. Steven was a person who preferred stay at home. For him, the idea of camping in the middle of the forest, surrounded by wild animals and far from civilization, was not very attractive to him. However, his friend Mateo managed to convince him, arguing that uh, arguing that lately he was under a lot of stress. After having finished the final exams, the trip would help him to relax more. Steven finished to prepare his things when he heard when he heard the horn of Mateo's car. Mateo was accompanied by two friends of Steven, Carmen and Samuel. They did not look very excited about the trip, but they could not regret it now. The four started the trip at 5 in the morning. They had planned to stay in the forest for 4 days. They traveled to Deer Road. After 5 hours of travel, they finally reached their destination. they reached a clearing in the middle of the forest. In the clearing, there was a tower of rocks that served to light a bonfire, in addition to having four lawns around the rocks. The clearing was a circular area. Near it there was a lake with clear waters, with paths that enter into the forest. The place seemed perfect for camping. However, Steven felt strange. There was something inside that told him that something was not right. Steven decided to ignore this. He thought it was just the fatigue of the trip. They began to unpack their things while Mateo and Samuel mounted tents. Carmen and Steven went to get firewood to the campfire. While they looked for the firewood, Carmen told Steven why she didn't want come camping. She told him about the existence of rumor of missing people in the forest who were found months later. However, after a couple of days, they began to behave strangely, as if they were someone else. They could not recognize their relatives, and after a few days, they became violent, and then run away from home to disappear again. Stephen laughed and said it was just rumors, and that kind of things only happens in movies. The rest of the day was normal. They did what any camper would do while in the forest, swim in the lake, normal things. However, the next morning they found some strange footprints around Samuel's tent. They did not seem to be some animal, more than something else. The footprints look more like human hands, human hands with long fingers, longer than usual. At first, they thought they could be footprints of some sick animal. They simply decide to ignore the footprints. However, during the night, during the rest of the day, the four fell observed. They felt as if eyes were observing them between the trees. They no longer feel safe. They agreed that they only spend one more night, and then they would leave at dawn. However, during the night, the things got worse. During the night, everything was in silence. No animals could be heard. It was as if all the animals in the forest were hiding. Suddenly, a scream was heard. They came from Mateo's tent. They all came out of their tents to see what was happening. It was there where they saw the thing that had left the footprints. It was such hideous and abominable creature, a kind of humanoid appearance, with longer arms and legs, more than usual. Their skin peeled off their bones, and their head was similar to their skull. They did not seem to have eyes. In place, there was only empty sockets, but somehow they feel those things were staring at them. Stephen, Samuel, and Carmen were paralyzed by fear, while they watched as the creatures devoured Mateo. One of the creatures launched a low roar that made them react. They panicked when they saw two other creatures peeking out between the trees. Unable to do anything to help Mateo, they ran to the car and broke the window. Samuel managed to start the car without the keys. The three managed to escape, leaving Mateos behind. While escaping in the car, they could hear how a voice similar to Mateo's voice was calling for them. However, they didn't stop. They continued driving until they reached a gas station. The three agreed not to say anything about what had happened. They knew that nobody was going to believe them. Instead, they said that a beer a date and kills Mateo. Weeks later, the news reported how the police had found a camper reporter as missing. It was Mateo. Steven was watching the news. At the time, Steven knew that it wasn't Mateo. During the night, Steven heard a noise that came from his window. When he leaned out to see, the last thing Steven saw was one of the creatures of the forest. They had found it. that it was my history. Thanks for listening and watching, and have a good night.